Citizens of America.
People of the Florida Alliance.
And the Western forces of Texas and California will be welcomed back to these United States as soon as their illegal secessionist government is deposed.
You don't know what side they're fighting for.
Someone's trying to kill us. We are trying to kill them.
Hello, Internet. Wait, stop. Don't touch that dial. Desert Island Institute of Film. I'm Dr. Paul.
I'm Diet Dr. Paul.
I don't want to see him cry, okay?
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target.
So watch this. This is our hot take on a movie just got back. What is it?
Civil War.
Where'd we see it at?
The movie theater.
How descriptive is that? NCG Cinema in Monroe, North Carolina. You like that theater?
That's my go-to theater.
Why?
Because all you can eat popcorn and
All
ices.
you can eat popcorn.
And they got the reclining chairs that do this too.
Mhm.
And they got the little tables that do this. It's like basically a bed in a movie theater in one.
All you can drink, all you can eat.
Mhm.
Of course, you have to take out a loan, a second mortgage to pay for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, that's one of our go-to theaters here. Civil War.
Civil War. This was in my top 7 films that I was excited about this year. I mean, there was like number 5 on my list. What did you like about it?
Well, I'm
Well,
thinking.
Did you have high expectations?
I did. I was
Okay.
terrified when I saw when you seen watch the trailer after you've seen this. It's terrifying. I do consider myself very political. I have
Mhm.
very strong feelings about it. In the end, I feel like I have never seen anything quite like this movie before, but I don't know that I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a film, as the filmmaking part
Mhm.
of it, what I liked about it, there's some great visuals with it. I think the casting is good. Obviously, I think the trailer is a superior product. Trailer makes you want to
Mhm.
makes you want to see the film. I like the last act of the film, the third act, I think is the strongest
It's
part
definitely
of
the
it.
strongest act in the
Yeah,
film.
and that is, but that is more typical of movies. The first 2 acts are very atypical of film. I can't think of another movie that quite a lot that's like that.
Mhm.
The last third, in some ways, is like a typical action movie.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what did you think?
Well, for me, I think it's not a perfect movie by any stretch, but I think I liked it a lot more than you did. To me, it's sort of like just a look into, I think, like the human condition and how we feel about things like fame and notoriety and what's important and what's not important. And I'll say this, you talk about not wanting to get into politics. I'll say the one prop that I really feel like I can give this movie is that it didn't get bogged down in politics with telling the story. I saw some people that were upset about it not explaining who these different roles were and like what the
What are they
political
fighting
background.
about? Right.
And
Why Civil War?
I get that, but I think when you look at it this way, it makes sense more because it wasn't so much about what they're fighting for. It's more about like, well, I guess it is what about they're fighting for, but not about the political ideology. It's more about like America as a generality. So I think it's just more like, it was something where I felt like I really just needed to sit and just watch. I was trying not to ask too many questions about narrative because there was big long breaks where it would go to like these moments you talked about, like where there's the scene with the fire and stuff, where there's these long montages of like very beautiful scenery with these juxtaposed situations going on. So I think it was more of like an experience and less about the narrative, which I feel like if you get caught up in really wanting to understand like an ABCD narrative, this is going to be a difficult watch for you from that standpoint.
You know, what you're saying was best illustrated in the scene where the movie's essentially about a team of journalists that are trying to make their way to Washington D.C. because they want to interview the president of the United States, and there's a civil war between what are called the Western.
Well, it's actually a civil war from more than one front, as they explained it.
Right.
But that's the general idea.
Right. And so they're there, and they are trying to make their way, and they figure that the best way to do it is they're going to circumvent and go from New York into West Virginia and all this. But there's a scene where they get they're sort of, there's an attack going on, and they're pinned down, and there was a lone gunman up in a wall or in a house. And there are folks that are there, this opposing forces that are trying to shoot this guy. And they ask, like, so who is that guy? He said, what do you mean, who is that guy? They're just trying to shoot us, and we're trying to shoot them. That illustrates it. It's not about, politics. There's another scene where they've got this guy tortured, and the guy says, yeah, I went to high school with this guy. I didn't like him then, kind of stuff.
He's like, I got kids, and it's just the scene with the guy you're talking about, the that's pinned down. I really like that because of how they snapped you into that scene. It's a very slow scene, and then they hit you with that, and it like jerked me back into the movie. But I thought that's one of the more poignant scenes in the film, is because you have these U.S. soldiers that are in gear, they're up on this building, and then you have these dudes, and it's like, this is just a guy who is in some militia, and he's trying to help his buddy down, and he gets shot, and he's trying to like pack the wound. But it's this very visceral take on, like, this is, as I said to you in the car, this is basically SEAL Team 6 capturing bin Laden, but it's what that would have been like if it was the president in America, and we have journalists going with it.
And it's just a disquieting film to watch because, I mean, I am an American. I love my country.
I do too.
And to see attacks on, there's a
monuments.
In D.C., I didn't feel that way in Independence Day, when in the movie Independence Day, when they blew up the White House. But I did. I felt like, oh my goodness, these are historical. That it just really is disquieting. There's also in that a scene where it's winter wonderland, and they're playing Christmas music on the speakers out there. And at the same time, you juxtapose, we think of Christmas, a lot of people think of Christmas as a wonderful time of the year, and you juxtapose that with the sort of the tension of fighting and gunfire and stuff. It really is kind of disquieting. It's not an easy film to watch at all.
Not.
And I'm not saying that all films should be easy.
No.
It's not a rom-com at all, but yeah.
No, I like that it seems like a journey that's less about the story, but I also like how there seems to be some story and character arcs in here that can be picked and like looked in upon, especially the older Hispanic guy and the young photographer. I feel like there's a backstory there that like you can maybe pick up in watching it again.
Yeah.
But it's not a perfect movie.
Well, what did you not like about it?
I like Alex Garland a lot. What he did here. I like the attempt, but I think it's a bit of a missed punch because we have all these great ideas and these great themes that we want to explore. But just because you have great themes to explore doesn't mean they're explored properly. It feels a bit like a music video too much at times. Like, yes, you got me with this very visceral textured landscape and situations that it's like, we're not used to seeing these in America, and that's great, but can you tie that together a little bit better for me and weave some of these stories to mean something for the extra audience that maybe isn't along for the same ride that I'm along for?
Yeah. I don't know that you need to always spoon feed your audience. And I think sometimes that not knowing and leaving things like, well, why did that happen? Or how did it, you see online, ending explain. People will go in and seen a movie and say, what does that mean? But I do think, though, I kept searching I wanted to know more of I wanted somewhere to have a news channel on where they could explain exactly what they're fighting about. The fact that it is California and Texas, and it was a deliberately selected in the screen clip, and what we bring to the movie is what we know of the current politics in California and in Texas. And there's discussion about Florida and then trying to pull the Carolinas in. I want to know, what are they fighting about? And I kept saying, because otherwise it's just, and I realize, you know, a lot of war films, you know, when you watch a Vietnam movie, we know what Vietnam was about. And so they don't have to explain that, or World War I or World War II. I really wanted to know what is at the basis to understand. And I think it was obviously it was a deliberate attempt on him, but for me, that was a little bit of a misfire.
I think that what you're saying about that is true, but I don't know. I think it's just kind of thing like his attempt could have worked, it just didn't. So I don't want to necessarily like fault him for that decision. I think it's just artistically it didn't work for me, and it didn't work for you.
Well, you know, here's let's say that he would have explained it. And if he tried to place it in context of the current politics in our country, then people would have, you know, whatever you say. You know, Stephen King just recently wrote a book where people they're losing their mind because one of the characters in the book is anti-Trump. And so everybody is just saying, so here it is, and it's woke and all this kind of stuff. And they're losing the story and they're losing the narrative because they're so tied into that.
And that's why.
And I think that's probably what would have happened had he
also,
done that.
Similar to that, like in the future, 20, 30 years from now, looking back at this film, people may not examine it through the same lens that we're examining it through today. So by taking that sort of identity from it, you make it, I think, the ability for it to play on itself on different eras of time in the future, it may have affected that a little bit.
Well, it does show how divided, obviously, Civil War is how divided our country are, and that reflects where we're at. And that's what terrified me in the thing, because I think yeah, I think
Absolutely.
we could have. And there's been discussion about secession and, you know, various states. There's a scene in there where they're talking about, these are photojournalists. They take pictures, and they are constantly taking pictures of all the war, but instead of it being in Czechoslovakia or the Ukraine or Vietnam, they're in, you know, West Virginia, they're in Ohio, they're in
Virginia.
in DC, yeah. And so they're taking these pictures, and one of the persons says, we don't ask the questions about why. We just take the picture, and that lets people ask the questions.
Yes.
And I think maybe that's isomorphic to what he's trying to say.
True.
Is
Makes
we
sense.
bring to this, if you are a conservative, you're probably going to look at this and see it through one lens. And if you're a liberal, you're going to see it through your particular lens. For me, I really, I questioned. I wanted to know more. We talk about the score, though, and I think that's why, for me, this was filmmaking. And maybe this was an attempt to jar the audience. But it's like graphic novels with comic books. Comic books, that you have the story, the words, and then you have the visuals. And it is really the integration of those two that produces the art. You can't have one without the other. The same way in film, when you have a score or background music, source music, and you couple that with your visuals, together it's stronger. And the music choices in this kept pulling me out of the thing. The best scores are movies that support the story. I don't feel like that did that, with one exception. There was one scene where I felt like and it was probably one of my favorite scenes, where there was fire and you saw embers, and it was a beautifully shot scene, and it was poignant because of what had happened in that time frame. And the music, I think, was a perfect choice of a match together that I had an emotional reaction to it. A lot of times the music would come on and think, what is he thinking, kind of stuff. And I'm sure I know enough about film that there's no accidents there, that is deliberate choices. And maybe it is to jar the audience and shake us up, because we don't want to be comfortable. This is unlike anything I've ever seen in a movie.
And that's great if that's the case, but you still have to make it work for the audience.
But you like the music.
I liked some of the music. I didn't like everything about it, but I liked most of it.
And the one song that I like the most
my
is
least favorite.
Yeah.
My least favorite song, probably.
Yeah. So, what's the verdict?
I think this is one I'm gonna have to see again. But I think if I'm gonna try to like pick my way through this, I think that it's the problem with it is it's too close to home. And it reminds me a little bit of like Ryan Coogler dealing with the original Black Panther. It's like this may have been a passion project. Like this is something that maybe Alex Garland is very passionate about. Just like Coogler was very passionate about African American culture and subculture. And so he has this time I get to do Black Panther, right? And so now it's like, what do I do? And so maybe you try to do too much. Maybe you try to push too much through one hole and it ends up just coming out the other end looking completely different than what you were attempting to do.
That's what she said.
And so maybe there's some of that, and I can kind of fault you for that because it is a very difficult situation to work your way through. But it's still a movie and it still has to be enjoyable. I did enjoy the movie. I had a good time. I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to like it.
Yeah.
I will say that I think that there's about 10 to 15 minutes in there they could get rid of, and a lot of them are extra scenes of montages where they could pare it down a little bit, and then maybe add 5 more minutes of backstory. Just a little bit to give it a little bit of a shell to help people understand. But I would say if I'm going to give it a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably like a 7 out of 10.
I got 6.5. I mean, so it's kind of close. You talk about montages. There was just some choices. You say why? When there's a time where the character is laying on the ground and the camera deliberately focuses on some wildflowers that are in front of her face. And it's like, what is this about?
Well, that too, and Claire, or Kirsten Dunst, her character arc was a little weird there at the end too, but I really liked her at the beginning. So that I think needed a little bit of work, but I definitely think that there's a story in here that's super compelling, and I think Mora, the Hispanic guy, I think he did a really good job. I really liked him in it, but I think it's a good movie, and I think especially if anything, it just will maybe get you to think about things a little bit.
Do you think that this movie will lead people who are on different sides of the political spectrum? Do you think that will bring people together to have some honest discussion and sort of see where people do?
And it's because they can't see themselves in it, because it's not about the people. It's about the journalists. And it's about the story. So I think it'll be difficult for people to see themselves in one side or the other, because it's really not about which side you're on. They don't really present that argument.
Do you think this movie makes it easier for people to espouse that, yes, what we need, the solution to the problems that we have in our country is that we need civil war?
Well, you could argue that that's one of the messages of the film, is that civil war is successful. That a successful civil war would be a solution. So, but that I can't say that for one. I'm not, as much as I would like to say that I care about politics, I definitely am not adept enough to give people any sort of like lesson in any of this at all. So,
yeah. What do you think?
If you've seen it.
Yeah, really, I'd love. I mean, what I covet in my heart is the opportunity to talk with people and get past the rhetoric and really hear why people believe what they believe, because there's so much misinformation is out there. Mm-hmm. People will say, well, this candidate or that candidate kind of stuff, and they've done this and done that. And I'm a big believer in the media. It is the third estate, and I think it's deliberate in how it protects our country, it protects our government. But we have, in some ways, it has been dismantled through misinformation, mm-hmm. dismantled by it really depends on what news sources that you trust. And I think there are news sources that are trustworthy.
Yeah.
Empirically, scientifically, I think they are.
But it's even getting people to believe that empirical and scientific data, if that worthy or not.
But I would love to sit down and talk with people and say, really, what is it? Why is it that you don't like Trump? Or why is it you don't like Biden? Or why is it you don't like Republicans or Democrats? Because I really would like to understand. I have my own feelings and my own belief, and I think I have done due diligence to seek out information and sort of informed opinion. But I really do. Sometimes I look in the newspaper and you see people that are being interviewed, and I'm thinking, where did that come from? what? And so, because I believe that, rooting against your government or your legislators or your president is like
It's like hoping the plane you're on crashes.
Yes, I mean it's just like there. I just I covet that, and that's why the movie really kind of terrified me when I saw the trailer, because I do feel like there's so much animosity and hatred, and I grew up in a time period where patriotism and defending somebody's right to say something you disagree with, kind of stuff. Now, so. We'd love to hear what you think, and I encourage people to see the movie.
I think it's
definitely
worth seeing, and I'll see it again for sure, and maybe my opinion will change.
I do think that, and it was a little bit difficult to hear. I don't know if it's the theater, because we saw Dune 1 there, and I remember when I think in one of our Dune reviews, I said when I bought Dune and watched it was better. And maybe it's my old man ears or maybe whatever.
Maybe that movie just sucked.
No, it didn't. No, go back and watch our Dune episode. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. We drop a new episode every single Thursday. Really, thanks to this guy right here, father, son. Go call your mom, call your dad, call your son, your brother, cousin, whatever, and go to the movies, and then talk about it and listen. My son told me tonight, and I'm going to do this. Dad, sometimes you just need to learn to listen better. And I pledge to the audience in internet land that I'm going to do that. I'm going to listen more to whatever he said. What?
I just did like this.
What'd you say?
I did like this.
Oh,
I thought you could see me in the thing. You did it.
No, I can't. My old man eyes too. Anyway, so where are we going to see people?
At the movies.
So what are we going to see next?
I don't know.
Barbie.
No.